You're looking for a security system that you can actually set and forget, something that won't give you a headache every time the app glitches or the cloud bill spikes. You want confidence that the cameras will actually capture the important moments, that the footage stays where you expect it, and that the whole kit feels solid enough to last years without you having to tinker with firmware updates every month. That's the exact dilemma most people face when they start comparing forecasting systems with a handful of bullet points on a product page. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into PoE NVR setups, the first thing I asked myself was, how many steps does it take from opening the box to having reliable video on my phone? The eufy PoE NVR bundle promises a single 4TB drive, 4 bullet cameras, and a local AI engine that does all the heavy lifting on-site. That sounds great on paper, but the real question is whether the software feels like a smooth experience or a series of tiny frustrations that add up. I've watched a bunch of user forums, read the handful of reviews that actually talk about installation, and even looked at a few DIY home security build guides that mention eufy's approach. The consensus is that the system is doable for a moderately handy homeowner, but it isn't a plug-and-play toy for someone who has never run a network cable before. Let's start with who actually benefits from this bundle. If you own a small to medium property, have a decent internet connection, and already have or are willing to buy a PoE switch, this could be the sweet spot. The 4 bullet cameras come with a triple lens design that gives you a 4K main image, a wider field of view, and a dedicated zoom lens. In practice, that means you can monitor a front porch, a backyard, and a driveway with enough detail to read a license plate at night, and you still get a broad overview without adding extra cameras. Because the cameras are wired, you never have to worry about battery drain or the occasional camera offline alert that's common with Wi-Fi models. For families with kids, pet owners who want to check on a backyard dog, or small businesses that need to keep an eye on deliveries, that reliability is a huge win. On the flip side, if you're renting, don't want to drill holes, or you live in an apartment complex where you can't run Ethernet to the outside, this isn't the best fit. The need for a PoE switch adds both cost and a bit of technical know-how. You'll have to run Cat6 cable from the NVR to each camera location, which can be a chore if you're dealing with concrete walls or a multi-story house. Also, if you're a hobbyist who loves to experiment with third-party integrations like connecting your cameras to a Home Assistant hub or using custom motion detection scripts, you'll find eufy's ecosystem a little closed. The NVR UI is functional but not as customizable as some open-source alternatives, and you can't export the video stream to other platforms without a workaround. Now, about the actual video quality and low-light performance. The triple lens setup includes a dedicated infrared sensor that kicks in around 10 feet and gives you a clear monochrome picture in pitch darkness. In my tests, the main 4K sensor held up well under streetlights and even caught the color of a moving car's headlights without turning into a noisy mess. The auto-framing and group tracking features are powered by a local AI chip, so the system can follow a person moving from one camera's view to the next without you having to manually switch feeds. That's handy if you have a side gate that's often used by delivery drivers. The NVR will keep the person in view as they walk across the yard, and you'll get a single continuous clip instead of 3 fragmented videos. One practical strength that often goes unnoticed is the local AI agent. Because all the processing happens on the device, you aren't sending your video to the cloud for analysis. That protects privacy and eliminates any monthly subscription fees you might see with other brands. The AI also helps reduce false alerts, which is something I've heard many users complain about with purely motion-based cameras. In a real-world scenario, say, a tree swaying in the wind, the system learns to ignore that movement after a few minutes, so you only get notifications when a person or vehicle actually passes by. However, there are a couple of weaknesses that matter after you've invested in the hardware. First, the initial setup time is longer than you might expect. You'll need to assign static IPs or rely on DHCP reservations for each camera, configure the NVR's network settings, and then spend a bit of time tweaking the auto-framing angles so that the cameras cover the exact zones you care about. The menu isn't overly complicated, but it isn't exactly zero learning curve either. If you're the type who prefers a straightforward app that just works after a few